community activist that has been working against oppression in all forms for her adult life. She is the executive director of RCC Sexual Violence Resource Center in Dane County. Also coordinates community partnerships for countywide sexual assault victim services throughout the sexual assault response team, the Commission on Sensitive Crimes, and the Domestic Violence and Sexual Violence Coordinated Community Response Team. She is currently on the board of directors for Outreach LGBTQ+ Center, Urban Triage, Freedom Incorporated, and World Builders. She has extensive experience working with persons experiencing homelessness. Throughout her work as the former director of housing and operations at Porchlight, her activism extends to all aspects of her life, including art, as she is a theater professional and has directed, acted, and produced theatrical works regionally and in New York. I'll do some of the edits. She's a co-founder of the Loud and Unchained Black Theater Festival and the principal of the Madison Theater Collective. She's part of the team to bring the Center for Black Excellence and Culture to life. She is additionally a Dane County Supervisor for District 33. I can't believe that this is just this one. So I present you Dana, not Peloton, Pellebon. Yep.
I wasn't thinking about that. You know what? I will be inventive. Throw it right back here. There we go. Oh. Okay. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
So my name is Dana Pellebon. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about RCC services here today. So before we get started, I do want to let you know that sometimes hearing information like this could be what we call emotionally activating. You know that word is triggered. We're actually trying to change some of that language because of feedback that we have received from persons who have been involved in gun violence. But one of the things that you should know is that when you hear information, you might get emotionally activated. What does that look like? So that looks like you might have a little bit of fear and panic, and you don't know where it's coming from. Sadness, increased heart rate, unable to focus, flashbacks, sweaty, clammy, stomach discomfort. Personally, I get it right here. I start to feel anxiety in my chest. So if you are feeling that and need to step out, please do so. I will not feel anything about that. Please take care of yourself. The other thing to know is that just because you're hearing something now, maybe later on tonight, you might feel those symptoms and need to reach out. We have 2 24-hour hotlines that are available, not just for survivors, but for loved ones of survivors. And we have one available in English and one in Spanish. So please feel free to reach out at any point in time if you are dealing with any of these issues, especially as a result of this conversation. So the important thing, we are celebrating 50 years of service here in Dane County. What's really great about RCC is we're actually the second oldest rape crisis center in the nation. And that's a pretty big deal. There was a movement that started there we go.
Sorry, I'm going to move
the same year as the landmark case of Roe v. Wade. And also, we had started conversations about RCC in 1972 when the Title IX legislation passed. So as you know, that first law was struck down recently, but we want to make sure that people understand in the historical context, there were a lot of things that were happening in the anti-violence movement in the 70s. And we have endured and have served our community since that point. That's all right.
They do that. Oh.
There we go. All right, so I want to start talking about our community-centered outreach and education. So first, we are in our schools. We are in our Dane County middle schools and high schools. And we do a 3-part education series that is around 45, 60, or 90 minutes. The first that we do is understanding sexual violence. One of the statistics that always causes me pause is 18% of persons who have been sexually assaulted in college recognize that as sexual assault, which means that 82%, even though what happened to them reaches the legal definition of sexual assault, don't actually recognize that experience as sexual assault. So one of the things that we like to make sure kids know is what exactly is sexual violence? Well, what does consent have to do with sexual violence, and why is it common, and what can we do about it? So it's not just here's information, but then here are action steps for kids to do in their own lives and communities. We talk about healthy relationships and boundaries. What makes a relationship healthy? How to understand boundaries and communicate them to the people around them. And then also building safer communities. We don't just focus on what happens after a crisis. We talk about how to make sure our community as a whole is safe for everyone. So what does a world free from sexual violence look like? How can we support survivors in our own lives? And how can we intervene when we see harm taking place? So that bystander intervention piece, especially for teens in a variety of different spaces, makes a lot of sense to talk to them about when you see something, say something. And then what does that look like while keeping them safe? And then what resources are available in our community for survivors? We also have a Game Changers program. So what we did was we work with a team of high school students across Dane County who are committed and engaging in activism and advocacy and educating themselves and our community on rape culture and intersecting oppressions that affect survivors of sexual violence. So we work on projects with them every year. The first half of the year is talking to them about what does activism look like? What does advocacy look like as a team? How do you get involved in the community to change the world around you? That's an important thing. That's one of the things that I learned from my parents in the civil rights movement is how do you see a problem and then work through that problem towards a solution in a better world around you. So we are doing that with our youth here in Dane County. And then at the end of the year, they do a project for them and for the people in the community. So we did a zine up here called Dreaming Ourselves. That was 1 year. There was a trans advocacy workshop and resources. And then we have a youth guide to supporting survivors in schools. And that was something that was a presentation that was given to parents and to teens in the high schools in Dane County, which was very well received. We have a lot of parents that contact us after their kids have been in our program saying, these kids are changed kids. One of our kids last year gave a TED talk because we helped through her 4 years in high school, building up what does being an advocate mean? And that culminated in her giving a TED talk on her intersecting experiences through high school. We also work with gender equity clubs. We are actually in the schools advising clubs with the teachers and the principals about social justice issues and creating a culture that doesn't accept violence in any forms, including sexual violence. So we're currently in Madison East Gender Equity Club and Oregon High School. One of our programs that has recently come back that I'm super excited about is Safer Bar. I actually used to be a bar owner. I was one of the co-owners of the Frequency downtown. And one of the things that we found out was there was a lot of things that were happening in our space that we didn't have control over. And we wanted to make sure that our team knew how to deal with very precarious situations. So we had started talking through things, and then RCC had started this program. So we had started partnering with them, and then COVID happened. And then bars just shut down, quite frankly, and we weren't even sure if bars were going to come back in the way that they have. But they have, and what's really awesome about it is that we have a lot of bars that are working with us to implement Safer Bar into their programming. So we go in, we talk about recognizing and identifying predatory behavior and sexual aggression, assertive communication skills, that's really important, early interventions, negotiation, and management of potential threats, recognizing our own triggers and styles of confrontation, Because just because I see a situation that's happening, I may not necessarily feel empowered or feel safe to intervene. So what are ways that we can do that without keeping, while keeping ourselves safe, essentially? And then also safety planning to keep the staff safe in case there is a very emergent situation that's got to be taken care of. And then targeting strategies to intervene in the workplace. So we relaunched this in 2022, and we just got a grant to work with all of the bars in the downtown area, because one of the things that we know is that most college age sexual assaults are alcohol fueled. So making sure that we have partners in the spaces where these situations can occur is important so that we can keep all of us. We also have our Chimera self-defense program, and that also teaches awareness, assertiveness, and physical protection skills. And I'll be honest with you, when I moved to Madison in 1993, I was a very sheltered church kid. I didn't know how to say no. I didn't know how to really assert myself in any situation. This is one of the first classes I took in my 20s. And this class started to give me the confidence to be able to set my boundaries, know what was a safe space to go into, how to recognize danger before it happened. And that was really important to me as a young woman navigating through the world. So we teach assertiveness skills, we teach physical skills. So like I could theoretically take you down. I'm closer to 50 now, so it might take me a little bit longer. But I do kind of know the things. We also have defenses against harassment and assault by acquaintances. And the reason why we specifically say assault by acquaintances is 80 to 90% of all persons who have been sexually assaulted know their perpetrator. And for children under the age of 18, it's actually around 92 to 95% know their perpetrator. So it's important that they know how to set some boundaries and keep themselves safe around persons even that they know. Defense against multiple attackers, advanced ground techniques, strategies for dealing with armed attacker, and protection in and around cars. So we actually have certified instructors that spend a lot of time making sure that they know all of the latest information. And they are great role models and ensure a safe space for the experiences that people do when they reach this class. And then we are in the community. So we have an Empower You Girls group where they work on practicing grounding in culture, healing, self-love. They learn how to advocate for themselves and others. They address personal and relationship issues through a creative outlet. So we do a lot of art with these kids. We do a lot of spoken word, a lot of writing. They learn supportive tools, techniques, practices for processing sexual violence and gender-based harm. We also have respite days for our Black and Latina women here in the community so that they have a space to come to that's just their own and allows them to relax because we know that persons of color are actually disproportionately affected by sexual violence. And so being able to have a safe space where you can just come and be is really important to the process of healing. And then we also have youth advocates training. So again, youth in schools with the skills to challenge and dismantle oppressive systems that have caused harm. In our Latina community in specific, we have Cerquero de Mujeres, which is a self-care support group for Latina women. And we also have a Healthy Boundaries series that is open to all adults. And these are services that are available in the Spanish language. And then we do mindfulness work and mindfulness with Marcella. Marcella is truly the most person I think I've ever met in my whole life. She just starts talking to me and all of my everything just melts away. It's really an amazing experience. So she centers mindful practice towards healing. She is featured at generally every YWCA Racial Justice Summit. She hosts at La Casa YWCA. She's in our MMSD schools every week. doing mindfulness work with kids to, again, help bring down anxiety, work through regression and work through issues that kids may be having. And then she also works with the Latino Health Council, Fernando Lazas and Lasu. And these are monthly meetings that center the needs of survivors at every level of the community. So direct services. Again, we do have a 24-hour helpline that is 24 hours, 365 days a year. And they are staffed by people here in Wisconsin. So Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, my daytime staff, they are the ones that staff our helpline. After hours, I have volunteers throughout the community. I have about 75 volunteers that come in and work our helplines every single day. And all day Saturday and all day Sunday. And what's really great is we have a lot of kids from UW who are like, yeah, that's what it is that I want to do. And they start that work on our helpline. And we have had people that started with our helpline in their 20s, moved to working with us as an on-call advocate, and have moved into the work with us even now. So this program not just helps people around, but it also raises people up to make sure that we are all working towards the same goal, which is a world without sexual violence. So when you call our helpline, one, we will listen and we will not blame you. That's important. We will answer any questions courteously and respectfully. We provide you information about your options and rights, because people have a lot of misnomers about what happens after you're sexually assaulted. So we want to make sure that people know what are the right spaces to go, because immediately you think, well, I need to go to my doctor. Well, yes, but what you don't know is that you actually need to go to Meritor, because they're the only hospital program that has a forensic nurse exam program. So if you go to UW, you'll be sitting in the ER for 3 to 4 hours. They'll check you out just to make sure that there's no broken bones, and then they send you over to Meritor, when you could just do that at the beginning. So again, it's about making sure that we are bringing people to the right spaces to get the help that they need. We respect and validate your experiences, and we respect your choices. We don't ever give opinions about what it is that that person wants to do. So if you would like to report to the police, we are there for you every step of the way. If you would like to not report to the police, we are there for that decision also. Because again, it is about respecting someone's boundaries and respecting what it is that they want to do for their body after that experience, because it is a traumatic experience. And again, the thing that I do need people to know is that it's not just for survivors. I cannot tell you how many parents that I talk to on the helpline all the time. And what's interesting is, so I'm a parent, and I seem to get all of the parent calls. So if I'm covering the helpline shift, every parent in Madison is calling my number, because we need to know what to do to get help. We get partners, we get grandparents. It's not just the survivors that are coming through saying, we don't know what to do next. So recently we did a resource guide for survivors, and then we also did one for support people, because the support people help that survivor get through to the next steps. So it's important that everybody have the information so that they know how to interact and move forward. So our advocacy services, we see everyone. Our day-to-day services are for kids age 12 and up. Our crisis services are for everybody, including kids 12 and under. We do have services available in English and in Spanish. And we also do have some services available in Hmong. So we do emotional support, we do case management, and we do case management because what we found is that persons who have been sexually assaulted, sometimes their most prescient concern isn't what actually happened, but it's, where do I sleep that night? Where do I get food this next week? How do I feel safe in my home? And once we take care of the issues to keep them safe and get them solid and steady, then we can work on the emotional support to getting them through that process. We are there for accompaniments. So if there is someone that comes in for a forensic nurse exam, we are automatically called to the hospital. So you don't have to worry about someone being there to support. We are automatically called, and we are there every step of the way. We are there with police reporting so that you don't have to have this conversation by yourself, right? We are there when there is criminal case support. So if that case then makes it to the DA's office and the DA decides to charge, we go with you to every court accompaniment. We go there to meet with you with the DA's office. We are there to help you write your victim witness statement. We are there wherever it is that you need us to be so that we can make sure that you are safe and protected and given space to do what it is that you need to do. And then also civil case support, like things like restraining orders. We are there with you for that. In schools, we do safety planning. We work with the schools to help the kids do accommodations. A lot of that work is with the kids and the parents, where we sit with the kids and the parents and the administrators, and we let them know what their rights are. So we don't push people either way. It's really just, I want to make sure that you know you have the right to this, you have the right to this, and you have the right to this. And then the schools and the kids and the parents can talk about what accommodations are needed for that kid in order to move forward. And we are in, again, the middle schools, high schools, and we're at every college campus here in Dayton. Just this last year, we opened up a therapy arm of our community. So we now offer affordable licensed clinical therapy here in Dane County. What we found, and especially once the courts closed with COVID, is that there were a lot of therapists that were unwilling to engage with survivors because they were afraid of being called to court. And they were like, we just don't give therapy until court is done. Well, when you have courts that are closed for 18 months, where do people go? What do they do? So our board decided to make an investment into the services for survivors, and we opened up our therapeutic wing. So we have about 4 therapists that work with the community. Right now, there's no cost. We have recently become empaneled to do insurance billing, but even those insurance billings, if your income is under 80% of the Dane County median income, we do not charge a copay. We will waive those copays. So it still makes it affordable to most of the residents here in Dane County. And just to give you an idea of what that 80% is, for one person, that income is $83,000. So if your income as one person is under $83,000, you still get free accessible therapy for as long as you need it. So we don't even do, you have only 6 weeks and then you got to move on. We are in it with our survivors for what it is that they need for however long it is that they need. We also do offer therapy referrals to agencies in Dane County. So our clinical director, Maureen Marshall, has been working in therapeutic services here in Madison for 20, 30 years. And she has relationships with every clinic here in Madison. So this last year, she put together a database with the help of those clinics, so that if we can't take someone, because we are only 3-4 people, that we can contact this clinic and say, this is the person that we have, this is what it is that they're needing. Do you have any openings sooner rather than later? So again, being able to have a pipeline to therapeutic services for people that are in crisis. We also have support groups. We are looking to expand those support groups, but currently we have the only queer and trans survivor support group here in Dane County. We have our Men Moving Forward support group, our marginalized gender support group, and then we have 2 female identified support groups that are available. And we do those virtually and in person, depending on what the group wants. Yes. Those are, that support group is for male identified persons who have experienced sexual violence, so that they have a space also. We tend to think about women in these spaces, and we know 1 in 4 women have experienced sexual violence over the course of their lifetime, but the numbers for men is 1 in 6. So it's not that different. So we want to provide spaces for everyone to get the work and the help that they need. We recently opened our comprehensive community service program. That is a collaboration with Dane County, where we work with persons who have mental health diagnosis or an AOTA diagnosis to give them the wraparound case management support that we need. And we facilitate all of their services that are available in the community. Because one of the things that we also found is, a lot of the people that we see that get kind of not noticed are folks who are unhoused. So you're unhoused, you have an addiction, you have a mental health issue. We can do a little bit of work with you on the advocacy side, but you need more in-depth services. And for our survivors, we want to make sure that those services are trauma informed. So we joined the Comprehensive Community Services Program through Dane County so that we could give that deeper level of support. We currently have 2 CCS people, we're hiring another. So that program is expanding also. Just to give you an idea of numbers and understand these numbers are low because we're still coming out of the pandemic in 2022. Just in 22, we had 3,478 helpline calls. We had 549 emotional support clients. We did 305 criminal justice accompaniments and 322 hospital accompaniments. And these are just some of the partners that we work with. We work with a lot of organizations through the community, and we have a lot of sister organizations. I actually started my journey on boards as a board member of DAYS and was one of the board members that worked to get the brand new shelter that happened back in 2014. So we work with organizations to make sure that we can not only help the people that we can help, but if we're not the best place, we can step them to someplace else, or we can co-advocate with someone. So for example, with Freedom Inc., the Hmong community is very, very insular. So a lot of times they won't come to us for help, but if Freedom Inc. needs something, we are there to co-advocate with the Hmong community here at Freedom Inc. Same with our deaf unity. Our deaf unity clients, we do a lot of really great co-advocating with that organization to make sure that those who have hearing impairments are also still getting the help that they need and being able to utilize the language resources that are best for them. Yes, you have any questions? Okay, hold on. I had one here first and then come up to you. Yes.
What's your budget and how are you funded?
So most of our funding comes from government grants. So our budget this past year with the therapy expansion, it brought us up to about $2 million. And grants, we get about 1.2 million for our grants. So we have about $800,000 that we've got to raise every year in order to do the work that we do.
Grant writer right on the spot?
I do have a grant writer because otherwise it would be me and my friends. I can't do everything. Yeah.
Does the Madison Community Foundation help you out when you get?
So we do have an investment account with the Madison Community Foundation. And I am writing a grant for capacity building and education coming up this year. So I'm going to be working with Angela Davis on that. Yes.
I'm just thinking about all your staff and volunteers. This has to be really intense work. And just how do they get support?
Yeah.
And so they can continue to do what they do.
Absolutely. So that was one of the things that was really important to me when I was brought into RCC. So when I was brought into RCC was a very static kind of organization where if you were assaulted, we'd meet you at the hospital and then you can come meet with somebody once a month, talk, and then that was it. That was the core of the services. It was we would accompany you and then we talk with you once a month. Well, we know that that's not enough, but also we know that in order to increase services, we have to care for our staff in a different way. So one of the things that I did was I actually reduced our caseload size because it's one thing to support 40 to 60 people, right? It's another thing to support 40 to 60 people who have gone through a violent traumatic incident. So I actually brought our caseload down to around 20 to 25. Just to make sure that people have the ability not just to care for the people, but then to adequately care for themselves. I make sure that they take time paid during the week, at least 2 hours a week for self-care. And that could be, you go to the coffee shop and you read a book. And not a book on sexual violence, but a book. Or you take that 2 hours and go watch a movie. We make sure that there are resources available for our staff. So that therapy referral is not just for survivors, but if our staff would like a therapy referral, we give those therapy referrals out to them. I'm in constant communication, especially with my direct service staff. When I started at RCC, I actually started as the head of direct services. So as much as I'm not supposed to be embedded in that, I still am. That's my heart. Serving people is my heart. So with my staff, I still talk to them every single day. How are you doing? Let's talk about what your caseload is. Let's talk about what that looks like. And recently I started building up a supervisory staff where we talk about what does supervision look like when you're doing it trauma informed. What does supervision look like for a staff when you are making sure that they are being cared for also? So it's not just we are caring for others, because I can't have you care for someone else if you aren't caring for yourself. So we start with self and then move out to others. Yes, you and then.
One more question. I noticed that, I don't know how many other bars have this, but in the ladies' bathroom, there's you can order a certain type of a drink, and that will tell the bartenders to what extent you may need help, such as even calling for police or just get me out of here or whatever. I think it's very interesting. Is that in almost all the bars, or is that?
So that's that program. We're still kind of waiting to see how that works. So it's called Angel Shots. And what we have seen in some areas is that if you're a predator, and there are predators that go to bars, if you're a predator, chances are you've heard of Angel Shot. And so if you hear someone saying that, you know what it is that they're doing, and they'll try to intervene before that point. But this is part of the reason why we started Safer Bar, is the bartenders need to be able to see what's happening instead of having someone being able to have the courage to come up and say, I would like an Angel Shot. That still takes a lot of courage. But if that bartender sees that there is somebody that's going from person to person and is always constantly hovering around someone's drinks, that bartender can intervene with the person that is predating instead of having to put that burden on the victim. Yes.
So I used to be a police officer. So this question's kind of specific.
Yep.
But I'd love to hear your impression on, with the changes that we were desiring in the systems. I saw it listed up there that it says civil suit, sort of civil pursuit. I was wondering, because legally victims, their history can be brought into question in a criminal trial. I'm wondering if you are seeing more of a movement towards civil, or if civil is not at all. If you were going to change one or two things, where would it be to make things better for everybody as a society? Because men and women alike want this to change.
Right. So there have been law changes that actually do prevent survivor's history from coming in. So you have to do some pretty good legal flips to get somebody's prior history in, just as an FYI. And we actually do a lot of training with and for law enforcement. So in April, I did training for every MPD officer. I'm there for every academy. Anybody that comes to the MATC Academy, we are there. We are there with MPD. We're there with Dane County Sheriff's Office. So we do a lot of conversations with them about how to be trauma informed. And so most of what I talk about with law enforcement is approach. How do you get what it is that you need to get out of that survivor without causing that survivor harm? Because we have a situation that is harmful. And then B, sometimes the investigation is also very traumatic. And then going through a trial is one of the scariest things that happens for a survivor. Even though that one experience was bad and awful, that 2-year process, and it can take up to 2 years for that case to go to trial. That is 2 years of agony with that survivor. So the things that I would change, I'm actually working on changing. It's why you see my name as a part of so many groups, is because we want to make sure that every point in the process, someone is being educated on how to work best with survivors. One of the things that I'm currently working on, this is something I'm on the AG SART team, that's a sexual assault response team, is we want to talk about removing arrest at a forensic nurse exam. So there have been people who have low-level warrants. So like, I didn't have the money to pay a ticket. So there's a warrant, right? Which, okay, right, that's a thing. But if you have a sexual assault that happens, you go into the hospital and understand that is a 4-hour experience. And that's just generally minimum. It's a 4-hour experience where they are collecting evidence off of your body. If you have a low-level warrant, law enforcement can arrest you right after that experience. Well, we don't want that to happen. It doesn't mean that we don't want that thing to be taken care of. We're just asking for law enforcement to wait. You can get their address. We can talk about a surrender time afterwards. But for those low-level issues where they're money concerned, not paying a ticket, we would like for them not to be arrested. So that's one of the things that the team on the Attorney General SART team and Attorney General Call is working on possible legislation coming up this fall. Yes.
I noticed that when Gray started coming to Rotary, he started calling it the RCC. Is there a rebrand in the works?
There is a rebrand in the works. One of the things that we've heard from survivors is, one, we don't want to label our experience as rape. And that's not how I feel about what happened to me. I don't like that word. It feels very emotionally activating for me. When I would then go into the community, especially in schools, and I would say that word, the kids would immediately shrink. And also, our services are so much more than just crisis intervention services. So in 2021, we started the process of talking through what does a new name look like? What can we say while keeping our brand? Because, well, as we know, that is important. And RCC is a name that is known in a lot of different spaces. So keeping our brand while being sensitive to the community's concerns and direct feedback from survivors. So there is a movement. So the Rape Crisis Center also is a brand that is branded throughout the country. So there you will see rape crisis centers in various different places. They also are moving towards different names. And what we felt was keeping the RCC was very important for us. And then saying what it is that we do. And really, we are a sexual violence resource center. And that encompasses education, prevention, crisis services, advocacy, and a variety of different things. Yes.
So with all the data, and then you said alcohol, are there any other trends that would signify where things happen, how things happen as well?
Well, we know that most people experience their first sexual violence before the age of 24, which is one of the reasons why we focus on youth and college kids very, very specifically, because that is the bulk of where those first experiences happen. So again, that prevention piece for us is huge, because we can't, well, again, I love all of the work that we do on the back end, that front end work, so that there can be a world where that isn't a thing. You know, I have a son that's moving into college this fall. I don't know how I'm gonna make it without him. But I would be in circles with him and his friends. And this I will never forget. He was 8 years old. We were having a party at the Ultra Tag Laser Zone. They're all sitting there with their little pizza and their Coca-Cola. And they were talking about issues that were happening all around the world. These are 8 to 10-year-olds. These kids know that there are things that are happening around them. And what was really great is that what they were talking about at these tables were changing the world. Not how many Pokemons, which by the way, they did still talk about. But as a part of that conversation, it was, I saw this thing, this wasn't right. We're gonna fix it. And now he runs in his Discord, please don't ask me what that is. In his Discord group, they have a space for survivors. And there's so many kids that aren't survivors, and that's actually the best news ever. That we have this small group that is survivors, but then there's all these kids who have never experienced sexual violence who are there to support that kid. And that's the change that I'm looking to see in the world. Yes.
I'm satisfied on law enforcement work with the DA's office. Helping their victims prosecuting.
I'm gonna put on my politician hat right now, hang on. So I am grateful, I am very grateful for the law enforcement partners that we have because they listen to my mouth. And I have a big one and I say lots of words. And they listen and they hear and they understand. Our DA's office is in a tough position. They have to win cases. They have to win cases. And so there's a lot of cases that don't go through. Now, one of the other statistics that again was actually surprising to me, only 2 to 8% of all sexual violence cases are unfounded, which means that there's not enough evidence. There may be false. May be conflicting evidence. They're unfounded. But that means that there's at least 92% that have the evidence. But they're not winnable. But part of the reason why they're not winnable is our society's attitudes towards sexual violence. We've had cases that have gone to jury trials where there was a situation, there were witnesses to that situation, and this person had brought the person home. The people in the next room, because they had roommates, they heard that there was something going on. The person was yelling for help. Those people came into the room, they grabbed this person out, the dude beat up the other person. And they were like, yeah, we're gonna prosecute, this is gonna be great. We got all the way through to a jury trial, and there was one person that wouldn't convict because she shouldn't have brought him home. Even though he did assault her, they have witnesses. She did everything right. She did everything right. But it was a not guilty because one person said, well, if she hadn't brought him home, then we wouldn't be in this position. And one of the things I'd like to let people know is that when you are a victim of sexual violence, there are 2 things that you think. One, that you could have prevented that from something that you did. And then 2, that you deserved that experience because you didn't do that prevention. Never in that thought process is that person should not have done this thing to you. So we talk a lot about where the actual blame lies. It doesn't lay with the person that thought that they were doing the things that they needed to do. It lies with the person that then didn't respect that person's consent. Well, you might have to grab that off me. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. And Dana, for all of our speakers, we make a contribution on their behalf to Rotary in Nationals and Polio Plus Funding in your honor.
Thank you.
And congratulations on also the grant. You and I talked on the phone last week about that, so I'm glad that came to fruition. Next week, Bill Pritchard co-chair of the District Rotary Youth Exchange Committee, will be here to talk about Rotary Youth Exchange for 2024 and beyond. So the changes that are coming there. And that's it for today. Thank you for being present in person and on Zoom. And remember, service above self, everybody. Have a great Rotary week.
Well,